So the IELTS is the International English Language Testing System. I recently had to take the IELTS, so let's talk about it. I'm bilingual. I learned English after I learned German, but it's been so long and I've been living abroad for so long that it's my main language right now, right? But I have a German passport. So if I apply to programs that are in English, I generally still have to prove my level of English. And I literally did my bachelor's and my master's in English. All my diplomas are in English. So you would think I speak English, right?
Right.
Yeah, the thing is, there's an expiry date to these kind of things. So even though you already proved a couple years ago that you speak English, doesn't mean that now, 4 years later, you still speak English. So I wanted to apply to a fellowship program, but I was cutting it close with the deadline, and I realized I needed to submit a language test. Usually, if you studied in English, that would count as proof, but I graduated more than 2 years ago, and so it doesn't count. You have to do it again. You might be like me, you already speak English fluently. Your entire life might be happening in English and you might be studying in English and all of the above, but you still have to choose your proficiency level, especially if you are aiming to go study abroad or do an internship abroad, or even for visa requirements, citizenship requirements. And for this kind of documentation, you will need a standardized language test. That is exactly what the IELTS is. It tests your speaking abilities, your listening and your reading, and your writing. And I want to talk about my experience taking it as someone who's a fluent English speaker. The first thing that I think is really important, if you've never taken a standardized language test before, the IELTS, yes, it does test your general English knowledge, but more importantly, it tests your ability to follow a certain structure, adhere to timing, and managing your attention. So you're expected to produce grammatically correct, organized, coherent language under time pressure. Anyway, so let me talk about my experience. Like I mentioned, I was kind of running out of time to apply for this program that I wasn't even selected for in the end, okay? This is like a recurring theme running throughout my life, like the job market is... So anyway, I needed the standardized test within a week. So I compared all the tests that they would accept, IELTS, the TOEFL, the Cambridge English, and some other university test center language tests. And so I compared all these standardized tests, and I ended up choosing the computer-based IELTS because, first of all, there was a time slot available 4 days later that I could book. And for the computer-based IELTS test, usually the results come in within 1 to 5 days, which was great because I needed them within 7. And then they have this thing called the one skill retake. So if you want to improve just one of your skills, if it's the listening or the writing or whatever, you can just retake this one component of the test without redoing the whole thing. So for example, if you need to have band 8 English for all of the components, so all 4 of them, but you only scored like 7 in one of them, then you can just retake it and you won't have to do the whole thing again. So anyway, the closest location to me was the University of Quebec in Montreal, the language testing center. So the day of the test rolled around, it was freaking cold. Okay. I rolled up to the university building. I was kind of early, so they told me to just wait in the waiting area until the time of my registration came around. So the registration time will be almost an hour before your test starts. So I registered and then I went back to the waiting area. I expected to have to wait like 50 minutes. But it turned out the examiner was already available, so I did the test right away. The IELTS speaking test is a face-to-face interview with an examiner, and it lasts around 11 to 14 minutes. The test is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is the easiest. The examiner asks you general questions about your familiar topics like your work, your studies, hobbies, or your hometown. So this section tests whether you can speak naturally and fluently about everyday topics. Part 2 of the test is the so-called long turn. You will receive a task card with a topic and you'll get 1 minute to prepare before speaking for up to 2 minutes. You will get a pen and a piece of paper and you can note down your thoughts. And really don't panic here. The most important thing is just to keep talking. The examiner just wants to see if you can organize your ideas and speak continuously without freezing. And then for part 3, 3. Here, the examiner will ask you broader and more abstract questions connected to the Part 2 topic. And this is where you need to explain opinions or speculate, compare ideas, and discuss more complex issues. The examiner will grade you on fluency and coherence, on vocabulary range, grammatical accuracy, and pronunciation. And just so you know, IELTS does not expect you to sound British or sound American. You do not need to hide your accent. When I say they grade you on pronunciation, it just means being understandable. It doesn't mean sounding native. I went in there, I just tried to remember not to use too many filler words, too many ums and likes and all that. I also kept thinking to myself, sprinkle in some fancy words here and there. You will be talking about a lot of different topics during the speaking exam, and you might not know a lot about all of them, but it doesn't really matter. Like, you don't really need to know the topic that well. Like, it's really more important for you to be able to express yourself. Like, if you can give good reasoning as to why you can't really answer that question and then still make an attempt to explain or, you know, bridge into a different topic, you show them that you're a good speaker. Like, I'm just saying, attempting to answer is more important and way better than freezing. I would say there's really no point in trying to drill certain vocabulary because you can't know in advance which topics they're gonna ask. So just relax, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Okay, the test was over. Don't remember how much time I had. I think it was like a proper lunch break between the speaking exam and then the listening, writing, and reading part. My cohort, I guess we were 14 people, like 14 test takers, and we were all waiting to register and then in the waiting area. And you need to bring your ID and a see-through water bottle. They specifically tell you now is the time to go to the bathroom if you need to. Okay, I was like, I don't need to go. Like, I had just gone to the bathroom. Of course, the moment I sat down, I needed to pee again because the whole process of registering and then like everybody being herded into the exam room took a bit longer than I thought it would. And then obviously you are so nervous that you're gonna need to pee. It doesn't matter how good you're at the subject or whatever. For me, at least, like, tests make me so nervous. Like, I'm sweating through my clothes. I have like exam anxiety or whatever. There's a word, I just don't know if that's like it. So this block of the test started with the listening exam. So the IELTS listening section lasts around 30 minutes and you'll encounter several question types throughout the test. Multiple choice questions, matching exercises, labeling a diagram or a map, for example, a floor plan. This is what I had to do. Sentence completion, note-taking tasks, and short answer questions, basically. There's also completion tasks, for example, notes, forms, or sentences that you need to complete. You need to pay really close attention to the word limit because if the instruction says no more than 2 words, then writing more than that will automatically lose you a point. Just make sure you stay focused the entire time. The listening section moves really quick, and once the recording continues, there's no going back. So you hear it one time and you need to write down the answer right away. The answers usually come in order, which is very helpful. So all you need to do is pay attention. What I did, I scribbled down the answers real quick, and then I realized I'm kind of running out of time here because I needed to go back and fill them all in. So don't do that. Just, you know, write them down as they come, and then you still have a little bit of time in the end to like go back and read through it again real quick, but you will only hear the audio once. Also, make sure you listen to the whole thing. Like, sometimes you think they're telling you the answer and then they actually like change their minds, like they walk back their statement, and so the answer you just wrote down is incorrect. The listening part was pretty straightforward. I got an 8.5 out of 9, which means I got about 2 or 3 questions wrong out of 40. For the IELTS reading section, you'll have 60 minutes to answer 40 questions. The biggest mistake that people make is trying to read everything carefully from beginning to end, and you don't really have to do that. Like, you kind of have to skim through and scan for information. Here you'll also encounter several different question types. Again, for example, multiple choice questions, matching headings, matching information, completing sentences, writing summaries, and then the true, false, not given questions. And this I kind of struggled with a little bit because false and not given are not the same. They're different. False means the text directly contradicts the statement, whereas not given means the text simply does not provide enough information. And a lot of people accidentally use their own background knowledge instead of relying on the text in front of them. A good approach, I would say, would be to kind of skim through the text first, read the questions, and then go back and try to locate the paragraph where the answer is hidden. You're gonna have have 60 minutes for 40 questions. Each answer is worth 1 point. A good thing to know is that the first section is the easiest and the third section is the hardest. So you should not split your time evenly. You ideally would take 15 minutes for the first section, 20 minutes for the second, and then you have a whole 25 minutes for the third, which is the hardest part. So yeah, my strategy, read the paragraphs quickly, get the gist of it, and then pay attention to the last sentence of the paragraph, because a lot of times the answers, they love to hide there. For this section, I also got an 8.5, which means I got 2 to 3 wrong out of 40. Okay, let's talk about the writing part. Okay, so the IELTS writing section is split into 2 tasks, lasts 60 minutes, and honestly is kind of, I think, the hardest part of the exam. Task 1 is the shorter one of the 2. In the academic IELTS test, you'll usually have to describe a graph, a chart, a table, or a process diagram. The goal is not to give your opinion, but to summarize and compare information clearly and objectively. And you should spend no more than 20 minutes on the section and write at least 150 words. Task 2 is the longer of the 2, and it's an opinion essay. This one counts twice as much towards your final writing score. You'll have around 40 minutes to respond to a question, present an argument, discuss advantages or disadvantages, or evaluate the statement that is given. And a simple structure that always works is writing an introduction followed by 2 main body paragraphs and then round it off with a conclusion. I personally spent too long on task 1, which ended up with me rushing task 2, and I think that's what contributed to my comparatively low score. Also, read the question carefully. IELTS questions are very specific, and if your essay goes even slightly off topic, you will lose points, so don't do that. That was my lowest score, and that's because I was stupid with my time. I'm just gonna tell you how it is. Like, I did not time this thing correctly at all. So the invigilators, they go around and they tell you specifically, only spend 20 minutes on the first part so that you have 40 minutes on the second.
Tomorrow.
Right. My camera died, and instead of crashing out, I decided to just go to bed. So here we are the next day. So I was given the topic of the socioeconomic issues of, I think, a city or something like that. I don't fully remember what it was. I was asked my opinion on the stated issue. I gambled all my time away with the short task. I think I spent 35 minutes, I kid you not, 35 minutes, because I went too much into detail. I was trying to make every single comparison that I could see. It was a picture of like a harbor bridge with 2 tunnels, and measurements were given of the tunnels as well as the bridge above it, the amount of lanes, all these things were given, and you were just supposed to look at it, analyze it, and then write out all the differences that you can see. I recommend you to please take a timed practice test, okay? With a very strict 20-40 minute split, because the more you practice it, the less overrun you will feel when you're sitting in the exam and the timer is running down. So I wish I had done that, but at the same time, I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare. I also, let's be honest, I kind of went in there winging it. Like I mentioned, I did a bachelor's, I did a master's in English, I wrote a whole thesis in English. I am confident that I can write at the level that is expected of me, of the institution I was applying to. I think I needed at least band 7 overall. Having studied in English, like, I knew that I could do it. If you haven't, this is something you might want to practice. Having said that, I didn't go into the exam fully blind. Like, I did take a few measures to at least understand the structure, and that's what I want to share with you right now. The very first thing, because we just talked about the writing part of the test, reading. Read a lot. Reading a lot will make you a better writer. It'll improve your spelling. Try to read academic English. What I did, I went back and read papers that I wrote in grad school. I even went back and read my bachelor thesis, because the thing is, like, in everyday life, we don't use all these academic connectors that we're expected to use when producing academic output. We don't use the same vocabulary, so just, expose yourself to it. That being said though, don't focus too much on learning vocabulary. There's all kinds of vocabulary lists out there, especially on platforms like Quizlet. I've used Quizlet in the past for learning different languages. I think in this instance, it is a bit of a wasted effort. Sure, there are so-called high band words that you can memorize, but like I mentioned about the speaking part of the exam, you will not know which topics are asked. So what you want to avoid is just throwing high band words around when the context of the conversation doesn't really ask for it. So I personally did not use Quizlet, and I wouldn't advise to do that. The same goes for books, like specific IELTS preparation books. I would say don't waste your money unless, I mean, you know yourself best, right? If you know that you benefit from like structured reading about an exam, like for example, I am planning on taking the Delhi C1 exam for Spanish. I will definitely use a preparation book for the exam to really understand the structure. But I think if you, like me, already speak English fluently and you're totally comfortable in an academic environment already, or comfortable using English on a higher level, you're not going to need that. There are free resources to be found online, like PDFs. Just have a look. If these are not enough for you, maybe invest in a book. I just don't think you need it if you're a confident English speaker. I say this also because I find the IELTS to be not as intimidating as I thought it was going to be. If I compared to the Delhi C1 in Spanish, I feel like that's going to be like a really difficult exam. Like the structure of the exam is kind of more complex than the IELTS was in English. Now, what actually did help was watching YouTube videos. Great free resource, guys. There's all kinds of IELTS content just like this one. What I found especially helpful, actual speaking test recordings. There are several videos out there, and I'll put them up on the screen. Videos that compare band 6, 7, 8, and 9 responses. Unfortunately, I have even seen some AI generated content out there, which is just... Some last thoughts. Make sure you add reasoning to your answers. Don't just keep it to a short, perfect answer, but like add your reasoning and just signal the examiner that you can articulate your response well. In terms of vocabulary, you know a lot more maybe than you think. I mean, your head is probably filled with vocabulary. You know a lot of advanced words, but you just don't use them because in casual conversations, it's just weird, All in all, yeah, I prepared for about 4 days and got an 8.5 band, which puts me at a C2 level, which I already knew. I just needed to prove it again. Look, I'm not that mad about my written score, even though it is, I think, lower than what I'm capable of. In the end, I met the requirement, and like, that's the only thing that matters. And even if I had scored an 8, I still would be at a band 8.5. Okay, so if you're a fluent English speaker and you're preparing for the IELTS, I hope that this video maybe saved you some stress. The IELTS is very doable. Make sure you sleep enough before the exam, you drink enough water, and you'll be fine. Well, if you want to know more about my language journeys, subscribe. I am currently working towards the Spanish C1 diploma, and at the same time, I am starting French classes in Quebec. And if you'd like to follow along and see how that goes, hit subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye!